Good morning, everybody. Happy New Year. I hope you've all had a great December and are ready to get started with 2024. It definitely took me a little bit of time to ease into the new year, especially my first day back at work this week. I went to bed at 7 o'clock on Tuesday night. How funny is that? Anyway, I would love to hear if anyone is here with me live. Can you type hi or say hello in the chat? And if not, and you're watching later, let me know when you're watching it. Also, how was your holiday, your Christmas, your New Year? Did anyone do anything exciting or go to a tropical destination or maybe a colder, snowier place than Nanaimo at least? I would love to hear. So, in today's live, we are talking about how to craft your strategic success plan for 2024. I've called it Blueprinting Brilliance. And essentially, this is coming off the heels of the standard New Year's resolutions, which I have not yet set, but I have my notebook ready. So, hopefully, you also have something to write on if you're here joining me because we are going to be making some notes as well. And if you were able to make it to last week's live, where we did our reflection on 2023, those notes might be handy to have around as well. Mine are in the same book, so I am good to go. Anyway, last month I took a course and I had promised to share it with you all, and it was really super interesting, really helpful, and a lot of amazing reframes for me. So, what we're going to do is basically take a lot of the information that talks about the unconscious mind, and that's going to be the theme for this month. So, January is going to be all about our unconscious mind, as well as how to harness its power to help you achieve your goals and transform your life in this new year. So, I know that the unconscious mind is a familiar subject for a lot of you, but some of you might not really know what I'm talking about. And well, to put it simply, the unconscious mind is the part of our awareness that is below, basically it's below our level of awareness. So it's the part of our brain or our psyche that allows us to go through the world and still have our heart beating, our lungs breathing, our senses working, and we don't have to think about that. But if you think of the analogy of an iceberg, and here's the water, the iceberg, you can see the top of the water. Sorry, you can see the top of the iceberg over the water, and then there's this huge part underneath. When we talk about the unconscious mind, it's like this iceberg. And sometimes we can become aware of it when we can bring that information into our conscience. But for the most part, it kind of ticks away on its own without us needing to take care of it. So if you think of having a cut on, say you cut your hand or you fell down and grazed your knee, the part of our body that's responsible for healing those wounds would be beneath our level of consciousness. We're not actively staring at our hand and going, heal, 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 or looking at our hair and instructing it to grow. We know inherently that our hair grows. We can heal from wounds, from illnesses, but we can influence these processes, yet we don't really have true control over how they're happening. And if I challenged you to grow your hair in a certain way, I have a feeling that even if you knew all about the process involved, you still wouldn't necessarily be able to do it. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of an idea of what we're dealing with here. It's very nebulous, isn't it? Anyway, let's see. So, for those of you who have been watching this video series for a long time, you'll know about the threat bucket analogy that I've spoken about at length. And when we talk about getting into our goal setting today, I would like you to keep that in mind. So, obviously, we take in information from our environment using our five senses, and this could be in the form of images, sounds, feelings, tastes, as well as smells. It can also be our thoughts. And this is a whole lot of information. It's like 2 million pieces or bits per second at a conservative guess. And because our conscious mind gets bombarded with all this information but can only handle 134 bits per second, there's had to be a lot of distorting, deleting, and generalizing in order for us to get down to this magic 7 plus or minus 2 number, which are the pieces of information that our brain can consciously deal with. And there's some theory about telephone numbers being 7 digits for that reason, because that's the amount of information we can hold in our conscious awareness at any given time. And that obviously depends on the situation, and you can train this to be a little bit higher if you are intentional about it. So, when we take in all of this information, there's some processing that happens and some filtering, a big amount of filtering. And what we get afterwards, the information that is left over, is what affects our internal state or our physiology and then leads to our behaviors. So, we take in information, something here happens in our brain, and this is based on our experiences as well as any kind of survival response if the amygdala is involved, and then we get our outputs. And we've talked all about outputs, but behaviors such as moving away from danger, moving towards something safe or appealing. It could be experiencing pain or a migraine or anxiety. Any of those things could be considered outputs or behaviors. And the way in which we experience our world is through the words that we use to describe our internal state. And we communicate this to other people using words to label our experiences. We wouldn't have a great idea of what other people were feeling without some kind of language or ability to communicate in a similar way. And obviously, when you see people and you can read facial expressions as well as body language, that plays a huge part too. So, words are one part of it. But for example, if I ask you to think of a blue car will pop up in your mind if you know what a car is and you know the color blue, obviously. But if you were to say, um, draw the blue car that came up in your mind. Oh, hello, Cindy. Tuning in from the beach. That sounds amazing. Which beach are you at? Back to the blue car example. If you were to draw your blue car or, find a picture of it in a magazine, everyone's blue car would be a little bit different. So we can still have this shared language, but our interpretation and how we present that information to the world is based on what happens in our brains and nervous systems to produce our outputs. So the way that we perceive our external world is directly related to what we're projecting into the world, and our realities are a mirror of this internal world. Ooh, St. George Island in North Florida. You're lots of time zones ahead and probably in a much warmer place than I am right now. That's so cool. I know you've done a lot of traveling, so it sounds like, yeah, you are getting to go to the warm places in the winter. What a good plan. I'm curious if anyone has heard of either a positivity or a negativity bias before. This is on the same theme of our processing here in the brain. If you think of a positivity bias, this is the tendency for us to report positive views of reality or to have positive expectations or memories when we're dealing with people or situations. And if you are in a relationship, an example of this might be like thinking back to when you first met your partner. You might have all of these feelings of excitement and, happy memories come up, and there would be less of the awkwardness or the feeling anxious about maybe impressing them on the first date. So that would be a tendency towards positivity. And then on the flip side, we can have a negativity bias, which of course might not get us to where we want to go, although it is very much a survival oriented response. So, for example, who has ever had a performance review at work or have, done a project and received both positive as well as negative feedback. I think even if you get 10 positive comments and most of the review is really positive, if there's one negative thing or constructive criticism, then that can linger, and sometimes you fixate or ruminate on that feedback, and that's the only thing that you can think of despite all of the positive things that were also said. And again, that can be a survival bias, so that helps to keep us safe and out of harm's way. But it's still not necessarily fun to experience that when there are still positives to be had and your brain goes directly into the negatives to zone in on. But guess what? It's okay because we have the ability to change our perceptions and to impact our unconscious mind so that we can have it working with us instead of against us. So, who would like to learn about that? I hope you do because I'm pretty excited about this. So, we're going to get into our blueprinting brilliance activity here. If you were able to join me last week and reflect on your 2023, there might be an area that you noticed you were stuck in, or perhaps a goal that you're working on that didn't quite get accomplished, and you would like to maybe conquer this year. If you weren't able to make it to that training, you're welcome to pause the video and hop back to check that one out, or just take a moment to think about where you are now in your life. And examples of different areas of your life might be your health, your career, your relationship, your spirituality, any kind of hobbies, your emotional health, and any kind of personal development that you're interested in. So, with those broad categories in mind, are you able to think about a place where you would like to either improve or change? And then, why don't we all just take a second, take a few breaths, and think about what we want that to look like by the end of 2024 or in a year from now, giving it a little bit of time. So, just maybe some straw breathing in through the nose, exhaling through pursed lips. Dream about your future with me here. And now, if you have something to write in, you're welcome to make a few notes here. So I'm just going to bring out my little journal. And if you're comfortable, I would love to hear what some of you would like to do or change for this year. Type it in the chat if you like, and if you don't want to, that's totally fine. However, I would like you to write it down in your notebook or whatever Word document you have open, maybe on your phone. And I would also like to say that when you write down what you want, it's really important to write what it is that you want rather than what you don't want. So maybe, as an example, I want to open a clinic, or I want to hire a clinic manager to help me. Ooh, good example. I want to improve my health. Cindy says, I've already started being more mindful with what I eat. Oh man, 5 days in. Good job. Hopefully, um, I'm guessing that was a longer term goal than just the beginning of this year, but I think that the holidays can be a really great push into more mindful eating after, I don't know about you, but you indulge a little bit in the season of delicious food and drinks. So maybe for you, it's wanting more income, or I would say being more productive versus not procrastinating. So, watching our language here so that we're not saying, I don't want this or I want to quit this. change it to be a more positive intention, because that is what helps our unconscious mind move towards something instead of just ignoring the not or the stop in that goal and just going for what you don't actually want anymore. And if you were changing your health, like through a diet or maybe more exercise, you could write concrete numbers for those things. And let's explore this so that you can begin to start implementing those changes in your life. And we are going to build the image of who you are, but a lot of visioning exercises, and that's why this one is going to be a little bit different, will get you to think about what it is that you're looking for and hoping to achieve, and then imagining yourself in that picture, looking through your own eyes, experiencing the new thing. However, if you do that, you have nowhere to go. So, what we're going to do is build motivation by creating an image and like stepping outside of our bodies so that we can see ourselves in our vision, and then you can become that vision because you're drawn towards it rather than feeling like, I've already achieved it, no big deal, I don't need to go further. So, what is it that you specifically want? Let's make our goals SMART. I know all of you have probably heard about SMART goals, but we are going to make it specific and ideally simple. So, for let's say, with Cindy's example, being more mindful with what I eat. So, specific, she is kind of broadly going to be helping herself with eating and mindful eating. What specifically do you want to eat? I mean, you probably don't want to eat more junk food or more candy, more chocolate. I don't know, maybe you do. So, would it be to start being more mindful about including more fruits and vegetables in your diet, or eating out, fewer times a week, maybe cooking your own meals, and maybe with the mindfulness aspect, savoring each bite of your food? More fruits and veggies. Awesome. Okay. And measurable. So, how can we make this both measurable and meaningful to you? Perhaps it's like more fruits and veggies is amazing. It depends on how you like to measure things, but you could say, like, at least half of my plate is going to be vegetables, and I'm going to eat 2 pieces of fruit every day, something like that. And it doesn't have to be something that is that specific necessarily, but being able to create really precise images allows our subconscious or our unconscious mind to have something to move towards. So if you can be specific, then that's perfect. You could even say, like, at least half the plate, or 2/3 of my plate, or 5 days a week I am going to have a combination of 10 fruits and veggies, something like that. And then our A is achievable and impacting, if you want, all areas of your life. So, how can you make this goal achievable? And what other spillover effects does it have on the rest of your life? So, maybe you plan to go to the grocery store at least once a week with a list of the fruits and veggies that you want to have, because obviously it's easier than just roaming the aisles and being distracted by other things. And how will this goal impact the other areas of your life? Are you able to see spillover effects maybe into your energy from changing what you're eating and how you're eating? Probably on your mood, your sleep, your concentration. There are so many wonderful benefits of paying attention to what we put into our bodies. And then for our R, we want this goal to be realistic as well as responsible. And this one's an interesting point, because if we think about setting goals, we want our goal to not only have a positive impact on us, but also on the people who are in our lives, and sometimes, if we can, on the community at large. So, if you decided you were going to eat more mindfully and you were only going to do it for you, then that might be a little bit hard when you go to a family event. So maybe it's bringing in other people who might be interested so that they can boost their health and feel better in their skin as well. If you were thinking about making a career change and that career change involved like moving across the country, while that might be good for you, say you had a partner who had a job or kids who were happily in their schools and communities where you're currently living, that may not be the best ecological, responsible choice for your family. Maybe it is. Maybe you talk to them about it. But that's just an example of how you can take those things into account as well. And then we're going to talk about our timeline. So, when are these changes going to happen by? It doesn't have to be the end of the year or by next year. Maybe you've got a couple things to work on, and one is going to be done by the end of 2024, but another you think, well, within a couple months, I want that to have happened. That's great. Just write that down and make sure that you are being very specific with what it is that you want. So I'm going to give you a couple minutes here. We're going to all I'll drop all of this into the chat so that if you need some cueing to remember those SMART goals, it'll be there. There you go. All right, so let's make it SMART. I just wrote 2023 in my goal. Oh, it's always what happens at the beginning of the year for me. I'm still stuck in writing the date of last year. Okay, let's move on. This is another cool part of this goal setting process. What I want you to do now, underneath your SMART goal, is to write how you know when you've achieved what you want. And by that, I mean, what's the last thing that has to happen so you know that you have achieved this goal? For the eating goal, is it that you open up your fridge and automatically start putting more fruits and vegetables into your meals and you're not even tempted to go into the chip aisle in the grocery store anymore? Or maybe it's related to an energy goal. Maybe you're tracking your energy levels every day and you are close to a 9 or 10 out of 10 every day of the week as a result. If it's something like a weight loss goal, that might be a little easier. You might step onto the scale and see that number. And that is what has to happen so that you know you've gotten that goal. For those more tangible things like, I want X income by this point, maybe it's opening your bank account and seeing however much in your bank account, or looking at your tax return and noticing your income from 2024 being that number that you want. What is it for you? What's the last thing that you have to What is the last thing that has to happen so that you know you have gotten this goal? Go ahead and write that down. Okay, so now what we're going to do is take all of that information that you've just written down and we're going to make what's called an internal representation of it. So this just means that we are going to, ideally with eyes closed or in a quiet place, imagine what that looks like, what you can hear, and what you can feel in your body when you've achieved that goal. So it could be looking at your bank statement, or it could be looking at your plate, or it could be looking at the scale, it could be stepping into your new clinic or job, whatever it is, buying your new house, like getting the key handed over to you. So take a couple breaths and just envision what that is for you, what your goal is, and what it looks like, any sounds you can hear. And focus in on the feelings in your body as you imagine it. Where are those feelings? How big is that sensation? How intense is it? Is the color, or is the image that you're looking at in color? Is it still? Is it moving? Is it bright or dim? Really pay attention to the details of this image. And now, if you weren't already seeing the image through your own eyes, I want you to think about stepping into that image so that you are seeing it out of your own eyes. And then we're going to imagine turning up the dial for the brightness, for that intensity in the feelings that you have. Really breathe it in. How would it feel to have finally achieved that goal, the one that you've been waiting to, strive towards or hit for so long? What would it feel like to actually achieve it? Whether that's the last step or an outcome of achieving that last step. And now here's the fun part. Imagine now that you're floating up out of your body and you become a bystander so that you can see yourself in the image achieving the goal that you want to achieve. And in that picture, you're welcome to make some notes on what that looks like for you and what it feels like. But that is what I want you to come back to when you think about this goal. So perhaps you remind yourself on a daily basis or throughout the day, but really like cement in that picture, lock it in, the picture, the sounds, the feelings. And that is how you can start training your unconscious mind to move you towards what it is that you want. Okay. Ooh, this is getting long. Let's see just a couple notes. What stops you from having that desired outcome? Make a couple notes on that. Are there any things in your way that are obvious barriers? Maybe it's financial barriers. Maybe for that new house, you haven't quite got enough for a down payment. Or maybe again, it's the logistics of moving your family across the country. Or maybe it's just hard to find fresh produce where you live at this time of the year in the winter. What are some things that stop you from having those desired goals achieved? And on the flip side, what resources do you need to help you create what you want in your life? So maybe that is more financial support, or potentially more time, or like more energy to make meals on a regular basis, or I don't know, another car so that you can go to the gym while your partner takes the car to work or something like that. Like, what is it that you need here? What's also standing in your way, but what can you use to bridge that gap? And after you do that, I will tell you the last one. How are you going to get there? Write down the first step that you are going to do to achieve this result. What is it? For eating, maybe it's going to grab some recipes or look up some recipes, or maybe it's going to the grocery store. Maybe if you want to get back in shape, it could be joining a gym or looking up a new running group or exercise, finding a buddy to be accountable to. What does that look like for you? Maybe it's having a conversation with your partner about this goal that you want to have with a big career change. Write it down. So, what I want to do to encourage you to stay on this goal, this exciting blueprint that you've created for 2024, is to come back to that image. So, time and time again, really focus on what it is that you want and see yourself in that picture. And every day, if you can, even if it's something really little, do something that moves you towards this goal. Doesn't have to be big. It could be eating an apple or going for a 10-minute walk. Something is better than nothing. So, I would love to hear how all of you found that. I had a lot of fun kind of prepping for this session and going through it with you. And if you found this exercise useful and are feeling fired up about the upcoming year, then I have an exciting announcement. I am going to be offering a really limited number of intensive success coaching sessions. And if you would like to learn more about how to train your unconscious mind so that it will be in alignment with these goals and you can make those actions, or sorry, the action steps feel like you're getting there, as well as have the support in taking these tangible steps towards bringing your goals into fruition, then I would love to hear from you. Basically, what we are going to do is go through this exercise so that I can understand what it is that you're looking for and how you define success. And we will figure out how, with a regulated nervous system, we can tweak certain things in your unconscious mind so that the goals will be much easier to achieve. And if you don't have the mindset of whatever it is that you want being easy to achieve, we can change that too. It's really cool. I'm happy to explain it to you. And again, it is an exclusive deal with a very limited number of spots based on my schedule and availability. But if you're interested, I would love to hear from you. Send me a DM or you can post me in the comments below. So, with that, Happy New Year, happy goal getting, and I can't wait to see you as we go through all of our trainings this month about the unconscious mind and how you can start to use it to get things in your life that you want to have. Take care. Have a great weekend, everybody.